Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're heading to Copenhagen, Denmark's capital.
That's right. A really fascinating city spread across those coastal islands, Zealand and Amager.
Yeah, and it's just packed with history, isn't it? Amazing buildings, interesting sights everywhere you look.
Absolutely. And the history goes way, way back. I mean, the first mentions are around 1043. That's a long time.
Incredible. And one thing the guides always mention is how easy it is to explore. Lots of it is walkable.
It's quite compact in the center, which is great for visitors.
So our mission today, as always, is to sift through, all the info out there, the travel guides, the resources,
And pull out the most interesting bits, the key insights about Copenhagen for you.
Exactly. Give you a deeper understanding. Okay, let's dive in. Where do we start? The name.
Yeah, the name is a good place to start. Copenhagen. It comes from the Old Danish Købmandsham,
Which means?
merchant's harbor. So right from the beginning, like the 10th century, its identity was tied to being a trading hub.
Makes sense, given its location. It wasn't just some small fishing village then.
Well, it started small, but its position made it crucial pretty quickly. Think about early European trade routes. These coastal spots were vital. It became a key node.
Right. And then it grew, becoming the capital by the 15th century. That's quite a leap.
It is. But then the 17th century, that seems like a really pivotal time, especially with King Christian IV.
Ah, yes, Christian IV. He pops up everywhere in the history, doesn't he? Sounds like he really left his mark.
He absolutely did, a major catalyst. He commissioned so many of the buildings we now consider iconic Copenhagen landmarks.
A real builder king.
Definitely. He had this vision, really pushed for that Dutch Renaissance style, you see. The gables, the brickwork. He shaped the city architecturally.
But it wasn't all smooth sailing, was it? I read about some major setbacks.
No, certainly not. The sources always mention the huge fire in 1728, which was devastating. And much later, the bombings in World War II.
Yet the city bounced back, rebuilt. That resilience is pretty remarkable when you think about it.
It really is. And it adds another layer when you're actually walking around, seeing these places that have endured so much.
Okay, so let's talk about some of those places, those iconic landmarks. Where better to start than maybe Tivoli Gardens?
Tivoli, yes. It's kind of the perfect example of Copenhagen blending history and fun, opened way back in 1843.
One of the oldest amusement parks in the world, right?
That's the one. But it's so much more than just roller coasters. The gardens themselves are beautiful, and the atmosphere, especially at night, all lit up. It's quite magical.
And didn't it inspire Hans Christian Andersen? That tells you something about its charm.
It did indeed. That speaks volumes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Plus, you've got this amazing mix, like really old wooden roller coasters running alongside modern thrill rides like the Star Flyer.
A living piece of history you can actually ride.
Yeah.
Okay, next up, Nijhaven. The pictures are just instantly recognizable.
Oh, absolutely. Nijhaven is incredibly picturesque. That old harbor once crammed with commercial ships. Now it's this gorgeous waterfront. Those colorful 17th, 18th century townhouses lined up along the canal. You still see old wooden ships tied up there too.
Adds to the atmosphere.
It really does. And, thinking about it from an urban planning perspective, it's a great example of regeneration. They've preserved the heritage, but made it a really pleasant, walkable area.
And Andersen lived there too, in several houses.
Yeah, numbers 18, 20, and 67, apparently. You can almost imagine him writing his stories looking out onto the canal.
Wow, and now it's full of restaurants and bars. Sounds lively.
Very lively. Definitely a place to soak up the atmosphere. Quite a change from its industrial past.
Okay, from the bustling harbor to something a bit quieter maybe. The Little Mermaid statue.
Ah, yes, the Little Mermaid. Probably the symbol of Copenhagen for many people around the world.
Sitting there on her rock at Langlinge Pier.
Exactly. Made by Edvard Eriksson back in 1913, it was a tribute to Hans Christian Andersen, of course, and his fairy tale.
Bronze and granite. It's quite small, isn't it? People are often surprised.
They are, yeah, it's relatively small, but it's amazing how this one statue embodying that story of sacrifice and longing has become so incredibly famous, so tied to the city's identity.
It really has. Okay, moving on to some grander structures. Christiansborg Palace. Sounds important.
It definitely is. It's on the little island of Slotsholmen, and it's basically the center of Danish power.
How so?
Well, it houses the Danish Parliament, the Supreme Court, and the Ministry of State, all in one complex.
Wow.
And parts are still used by the royal family. The Prime Minister uses the royal reception rooms for official events, state visits, that sort of thing.
So history and modern government side by side.
Exactly. And visitors can actually explore some of those grand rooms and even see the old castle ruins underneath the current palace. Really layers of history there.
Fascinating. And sticking with royalty, there's Amalienborg Palace, the Queen's residence.
The official residence of the Danish monarchy, yes. It's quite distinctive architecturally. 4 identical palace buildings around a big open square.
Oh, right. I've seen pictures, and they have the changing of the guard ceremony.
They do every day. It's a big draw for tourists, a real piece of royal pageantry.
And there's a museum, too.
The Amalienborg Museum lets you peek into the lives and history of the royals. It connects the present monarchy to its past.
Nice. Okay, another castle, Rosenborg Castle. This one sounds like it's all about treasures.
Rosenborg definitely fits that description. Built by our friend King Christian IV, again, early 17th century. It's right in the King's Garden.
And inside?
Inside, it's like stepping back in time. It houses 400 years of royal art, treasures, and most importantly, the Danish crown jewels and the royal regalia.
Wow, the actual crown jewels.
The real deal. And apparently the interiors are incredibly well preserved. Plus, there are these amazing historic tapestries showing old battles between Denmark and Sweden.
Gives you a real visual sense of history. Okay, shifting from royal to civic power, Copenhagen City Hall.
Right, on City Hall Square. Built later, between 1892 and 1905, it's an impressive building in its own right.
What's inside? Anything particularly noteworthy?
Well, besides the grand architecture, the huge oak stairs and artwork, it has something really special. Jens Olsen's world clock.
The world clock.
An incredibly complex astronomical clock. The guides describe it as fascinating, a marvel of engineering from that time.
Huh. An astronomical clock in a city hall.
Ah!
That's cool. Now, if you want the bigger picture of Danish history and culture, I guess the National Museum of Denmark is the place.
Absolutely essential, yes. It's the country's largest museum of cultural history. It covers everything.
Like from the Stone Age onwards.
Pretty much. Stone Age, Viking Age, Middle Ages, Renaissance, right up to modern Danish history. A huge sweep.
Anything for kids.
Oh, yes. They have a dedicated children's museum. Sounds really well done. Very interactive. You can, pretend to sail a Viking longboat or defend a medieval castle.
Huh. That sounds brilliant. Makes history much more engaging.
Definitely a good way to connect with the past.
Okay, let's talk green spaces. The botanical gardens. Sounds like a peaceful escape.
It really is, right in the city center, covering 10 hectares. It's famous for its complex of beautiful old glass houses from 1874.
And lots of plants, I assume.
Over 13,000 species. They're arranged in different sections: Danish plants, a rock garden, conifer hill, all sorts.
Wow.
And get this, they even have a special air-conditioned greenhouse just for Arctic plants.
Arctic plants. In Copenhagen, that's dedication. Okay, what about animals? Copenhagen ZOO.
Another old institution founded back in 1859, so one of Europe's oldest zoos.
How big is it?
Home to over 4,000 animals, apparently. Around 264 different species. They do wildlife demonstrations, polar bears, chimps, that kind of thing. And I read they have a particularly good reputation for their elephant facility.
Yes, sources often mention that it's considered one of the best in the world. They also have varied environments like an artificial rainforest section, African plains, and Arctic enclosure, trying to create good habitats. Sounds like a well-regarded zoo, focused on welfare. Okay, one last distinct area, Christiania, Freetown Christiania.
Yeah.
It's a sort of reputation.
It certainly does. It started back in 1971, an intentional community in the Christianshavn area. It's largely self-governing, autonomous.
And what's it like?
The guides describe it as very green, car-free mostly, packed with art galleries, music venues, inexpensive cafes, lots of local workshops, organic food places too.
So a real alternative vibe.
Definitely. It represents a different way of living within the city, a unique place to experience.
It sounds like it. So pulling it all together, Copenhagen really feels like a city where old meets new, doesn't it?
Precisely. That blend is everywhere. You have the historic palaces we talked about, right alongside striking modern architecture like the Copenhagen Opera House or parts of the City Hall complex.
And it's not just buildings, it's the lifestyle too.
Absolutely. Think about its reputation as a bike-friendly city. Those extensive cycle paths aren't just for show. They're fundamental to how the city works.
That focus on sustainability, green spaces like the King's Garden.
Exactly. Those are core modern values, deeply embedded in the city. And then there's the culture.
Right. Design Museum Denmark, showcasing that famous Danish design heritage.
And the food scene. from world-renowned high-end places like Noma.
All the way down to classic local stuff like smørbrød, those open-faced sandwiches.
You've got it. Plus a thriving art scene, major museums like the National Gallery of Denmark or the Louisiana Museum of Modern Art just outside the city.
Which is world famous in its own right.
It really is. Copenhagen offers this incredible mosaic of experiences.
So wrapping up this deep dive, it seems pretty clear Copenhagen's charm comes from that constant conversation between its deep history and its very modern, forward-looking attitude.
That sums it up well.
It offers such a diverse range of things to see and do.
Yeah.
History buffs, design lovers, foodies, people just wanting to soak up the atmosphere. There's something for everyone.
And as you mentioned earlier, it's just very accessible and easy to explore, a very welcoming feel.
Yeah, a really inviting capital. Okay, so here's a final thought to leave you with. Copenhagen has this long history of adapting, of flourishing, of rebuilding after challenges. Considering that long view, what kind of future innovations or maybe transformations might we see next for this fascinating city? What might further define Copenhagen down the road?
That's a really interesting question to ponder. What's next for a city that constantly seems to reinvent itself while honoring its past?
Something for you to think about, perhaps, as you consider your own deep dive into Copenhagen.